Okay, today I'm going to show you or demonstrate how to create a part using the subtraction method where we actually draw a block and then start cutting items away from this. So we're going to create a block. We're going to try and create block number one here. So the first thing I'm going to do is determine the overall width and height. The overall height of this, if you count the little boxes, is 5, and the overall width of this is 8, if you count these little boxes here. So it's 8 units by 5. So let's create a block that is 8 by 5. So to do that, we have a new part started. We always start with a 2D sketch, start in the XY plane, the rectangle tool, in which we have to click on one corner and the opposite corner. So I always like to start it by right here in the origin. And I'm going to go up and work in the first quadrant here. And notice the width dimension box is highlighted right now in blue, the 0.818. I want that to be 8 inches. And now to get to the other box, so it's highlighted, the height dimension box, if I try and click on that, it's going to go away because remember the program's waiting for me to click to set the top point of the rectangle. So it's going to think that's where I want the top point of the rectangle to be. So to get the height dimension box to highlight, you actually just hit the tab key on your keyboard and then the height dimension box will highlight, and then you can put in, and the overall height for this, was it 6 or 5? Let's go back and double check. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, it is 5. So we want that, the overall height then to be 5, and I hit enter. Now I just created a 5 by 8 rectangle, but part of it is off the screen up here. So we use these view tools, and this is zoom all, and now it's zoomed so I can see it. Now I'm just going to finish the sketch and zoom all again so I can see it. And now let's go ahead and extrude it and give it a depth. And if we go back to here, this block, the overall depth would be this direction right here. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units deep. So we'll go 5 inches deep, and we'll just put that right here. Oh, and incidentally, these two boxes here will do exactly the same. This one might be rolled up on your screen so you can't see it. I think this one is more visual when you're first starting to learn. I think I would recommend using this one. So just unroll it by clicking the arrow, and now you put in 5 right here. This controls the direction it goes, and for this one it doesn't really matter. I'll just do the default direction, and that's out toward me. And then I'll say OK, or I could hit the green check mark here, or I could simply hit the enter key. So I'll say OK. So now I have a block that is 8 wide by 5 tall by 5 deep. Now let's go ahead and create a rectangle that is 6 units by 3 units, and we're going to cut that rectangle all the way through this shape to just leave this L shape right here. So here's how I go about doing that. Again, I would click on the front face and I would do a sketch. Now notice this sketch tool is the same as this one. Doesn't matter which one you use, but this one's a little more convenient. So now we're sketching in the front face of this object. And again, I want to do a rectangle, and I want the rectangle to start right up here on this corner. And notice that corner will highlight green when I'm right on it. And you'll also notice a little icon just to the left of the X down there by 8 inches. Shows you a constraint, and it's indicating that you are right on a point of that, right on a corner of that object right now. Now notice how it changes if I go over a little bit. Now I'm just on a line, but not on the corner. See how it changes to a line instead of a red point like it is now. So I'm right on the corner, and that's really important. And now I'm just going to click and drag down this way, and I need to make a rectangle 6 by 3. So I'm just going for this one, and I could enter using the tab key and enter those dimensions right now. But for this time, I'm going to show you a different way you can dimension. So I'm just going to set my rectangle, but no dimensions are on the rectangle right now. So I can use the dimension tool here, and I can click on this line and make this 3 inches tall. And I want this to be 6 inches wide. So I click on one line and I go over, don't drag, click on the other line. Now I have the number. I'm not dragging right now, I'm just moving it around. And I'm going to move it. I always like to move the dimensions up off the part. So up here somewhere, and I like the 6, in this case, the dimension to actually be between the arrowheads. And wherever I click, it will set that number and give me the option to change it. Oh, in this case, I was real close to 6, but not exactly. And in the CAD world, we need to be exact. So we have in a box 6 by 3. I'm going to say finish the sketch and extrude. And this time when I extrude, I don't want it to extrude out toward me. Instead, I want to use this one, which is the cut command. And that's actually going to cut that all the way through the object. Now, right now, it's just set for a distance. So if I would change that to, say, 2 inches, you'll see it update. It's only going to cut back 2 inches. But in this case, I want to cut through the whole entire thing. So I'm going to say cut all and say, okay, now I have it into the L shape. Now, the next thing that we'll need to do, let's try to create this cut right here to go through. So I'm going to click on this face right here. I'm going to create a rectangle that is 1 inch tall by 1, 2, 3 inches wide. So 1 by 3. So I click on this face, click on this sketch tool, and click a rectangle and make sure that you are right on the line. Right here, it looks like I'm on the line, but notice that little constraint icon has went away. Now, the constraint icon with the arrow pointing to the red line is there. I know I'm right on that edge. That's really important. And click and drag, and I want a rectangle that is 3, and I'll use the tab, by 1. So now, just so you can see what I'm doing here, I'm going to go to this command here, and you can see I've just drawn a 1 by 3 rectangle on this face. And some of you might say, okay, well, I'm ready to go ahead and cut that through now. However, remember that rectangle, we need to locate where that rectangle is at. Right now, we have a 1 by 3 rectangle, but we don't necessarily know if it's in the correct position to cut all the way through. So if we go back to our part file here, it looks like that rectangle is 1 unit over from this edge right here. So 1 unit over. So if we go back to here and go back to our dimension tab, from this edge to the side of the rectangle, oop, I didn't get it. Sometimes this can be kind of tricky. So let's go back in and look at the right side of this the way I was. And let's say from here, oh, hit the dimension tool again, sorry. From here to this edge, we want that distance to be exactly 1 inch. And when I hit enter, watch the rectangle move a little bit to the left. Now, when you do this, I always suggest draw the rectangle the size that you want it first, then locate the rectangle on the surface. In this case, it's already up against the top line, so we don't need to move it up and down. And we just need to move it 1 inch. So now if this rectangle, 1 by 3, is 1 inch over from this edge, then it has to be 1 inch over from this edge as well, because the rectangle is 3 inches long. And if you recall, this part was exactly 5 inches wide. So there has to be 1 inch left over here. And you don't want to over constrain it. If I would try to put a dimension on this side and make it, oops, make it 1 inch, sometimes it likes to mess up there. And make it 1 inch, it'll kind of honk at you here and give you an error button. And if you ever see this error, it will over dimension. You never want to accept that. We don't want to over dimension. So say cancel. So now we're ready to go ahead and finish the sketch, and we can extrude that. Now in this case, it doesn't know what you want to extrude. So you do have to define it by just clicking inside the rectangle that we want to extrude. And we want to do a cut as well. And we'll say through all and say OK. Then the final thing is And I'll go real quick. I think you probably get the idea by now, but now we want to click in this face and cut a rectangle all the way through. So I'll click in this face, go here, and then that highlights it or moves it for us. And now for the rectangle, for this one, it will be, now this one's kind of hard to tell, but I know that I need a rectangle that is 1, 2, 3, 4 inches in width. And this direction, well, it's 1.5 from this edge and 1.5 from this edge. So let me show you a little bit different technique we can use for dimensioning. We could do the math to figure that out, but I'm going to go ahead and create a rectangle. And this direction, I'm just going to put that it needs to be 4 inches in this direction and hit enter. Now it's not positioned correctly, but we do have it 4 inches tall. And again, if I go here so you can kind of see where I'm drawing in the top face. Oh, and incidentally, I could have drawn the rectangle in this face and cut it back this direction as well. I chose to do this tape. Just like for this block up here, I could have selected the top face here and drawn a rectangle this big and cut it down 1 inch. But I chose to go, I like to cut all the way through objects, so I click in the face that I cut all the way through. Now back to this one. Let's get this dimensioned in width, and you'll see, if you look back here, we don't really know how far it is from here to here, and it gets kind of messy to count those boxes. So, but I do know it is, if I zoom in on this a little bit, it is 1.5 boxes from this corner to here, and 1.5 from this corner to here. So we could do that in the dimensioning as well. Dimension, and from here to here, I'll make that 1.5, enter. And from here to here, I'll make that 1.5, enter. Now you'll notice all the lines have turned blue at this point. That means that this rectangle is fully defined and we're ready to finish the sketch and we can extrude. Fully defined just means all the dimensions of this box have been, all the lines have been fully dimensioned. So I'm going to say finish sketch, extrude, click there, do a cut through all, say OK, and there we have our part. Now you'd want to save this, go File, click the icon, icon, Save As, and you would want to save this in your 12 blocks folder in your 3D mechanical. You should have a 3D mechanical folder in your OneDrive and a 12 blocks folder inside that, and save it as block number 1. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this, and good luck creating part number 1.